During the White Nights of St. Petersburg, when most of the city goes away, a dreamer and a heartbroken young woman share a series of conversations that result in a heart-wrenching tale of unrequited love. That is the premise of White Nights by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. This was one of my favorite books that I've read. It's very, very short, but I love Fyodor Dostoyevsky, and I'm so happy that I get to talk about this book today, because all throughout the time that I started this YouTube channel, I have been so excited to talk about any book from Dostoyevsky. He's my favorite author of all time, and every book that I read from him, I am more and more impressed. And White Nights is no exception. I didn't really know what to think coming into this book. It's very short. It's only about 50 pages. And I had no idea that so much could be conveyed in such a short amount of time. So many feelings and so many emotions. And I definitely felt all of them as I was reading this book. I picked up White Nights specifically because I had seen it around a lot. I guess it's one of Dostoyevsky's more popular books, possibly because it's just so easy to access. It's so short and easy to get into, whereas a lot of Dostoyevsky, like the Brothers Karamazov, for example, is a beast of a book to try to read, especially if it's your first time tackling Russian literature in general or Dostoyevsky in particular. So White Nights is a fantastic starting place for anybody interested in Russian literature and interested specifically in Dostoyevsky. Even though it's so short, it's still one of his better works. I really enjoyed reading it. I felt like the story was super fleshed out and super exciting and interesting, even in such a short amount of time to be talking about it. White Nights, despite its name that might be a little misleading, is actually about the summer in St. Petersburg, Russia, when there would be nights that would be constant daylight. And I did a little research into these white nights just out of curiosity. Because to me, when I pick up this book, I immediately think, oh, it's winter, white nights, winter nights. And while it definitely gives kind of the atmosphere of winter, as I think all of Dostoyevsky's books do, probably mainly just because of the setting in Russia. It's kind of more of a gloomy, melancholy setting. And so they're great winter reads, and this is no exception to that rule. It would make a great winter read, and it makes a great read if you want to read a book in a single sitting, which is what I did with this one. And something that I think works well with this book in particular. But it takes place in the summertime, and as you read more into the book, that kind of gives you this summer feeling. This overarching theme of this story is unrequited love, and it just makes it seem kind of like this summer dream that's happening. And the main character is only known to us as the reader as the dreamer, and his name is never given. He's kind of this bystander in his own story, and he's experiencing the world around him in this kind of dreamlike state. He's not living his life. He's just thinking about the things that he could do to live his life. And it's such a relatable experience for people who are readers and who are likewise dreamers, like the dreamer in this story. Something that I definitely related to on more than one level at times, and some of the quotes hit a little close to home for me. But the dreamer, during these white nights of Russia, realizes that all these people whom he has considered friends, just by seeing them every day, passing them on the street, have gone away for the summer to their summer estates or to visit friends, what say you? And he's left alone, and he feels this unbearable loneliness and heaviness being left alone. And it pushes him forward to finally take the step and start to live his own life by taking a chance. Just one chance on a solemn summer's night when he sees a young woman who's in a difficult situation. He sees tears streaming down her face, and he feels unmistakable compassion and curiosity. And he tells himself, I'm going to go talk to her. And so he does. And that one decision propels the story forward and takes him out of his box of being the dreamer and gives him this taste of what life could be like. But when White Nights is also a tragedy of sorts. And so as the story progresses, things are not quite what they seem at first sight. I've loved everything I've read by Dostoyevsky, but this book is so short and so poignant, and it's a great starting place if you're looking to get into Dostoyevsky or Russian literature, and it's a great quick read if you just need a little taste of Dostoyevsky instead of picking up a huge novel that will take you several months to finish, which was why this came at such a perfect timing for me in between other books that I'm reading, and it was a good palate cleanser, if you will. But I'm very excited that I get to talk about a Dostoyevsky book, and I'm looking forward to talking about some of his longer novels as well. But I feel like White Nights is a good dipping my toes in, getting acquainted with how to discuss my favorite author of all time. All of that being said, let's get into some quotes from White Nights by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. One thing that I really love about the opening lines to White Nights is we first get at the beginning of each section, there's not really chapters necessarily, but at the beginning of each section, we get the night. It says first night, second night, third night, and then the last section, it says morning. So the story takes place over a series of nights and these nighttime conversations between these two young people. It gives it this dreamlike state that perfectly encapsulates the dreamer, the point of view character of this story. And at the beginning of the story, it says, White Nights, a sentimental story from the diary of a dreamer. And it does give this kind of diary-like atmosphere to it, where you're seeing the internal thoughts, and he's having kind of this internal dialogue with himself more than anything, which is something that Dostoyevsky very much excels at and is masterfully done in works like Crime and Punishment, where you get this internal narrative and internal argumentation from the point of view character arguing with themselves, and it's such a wonderfully unique way of reading a story and something that's very important in the narrative of White Nights. The first line of the book says, "It was a wonderful night, such a night as is only possible when we are young, dear reader." So the entirety of White Nights is in some ways addressed to the reader, who in some ways is a fellow dreamer, someone else who may experience similar events to the dreamer of White Nights. That one line really encapsulates the book. Is a wonderful night, such a night as is only possible when we are young. White Nights is a story of kind of the follies of youth in a way. You get these characters who perhaps would be well paired for each other, but the follies of youth kind of lead them astray. The next line I have marked is, "I felt afraid of being left alone, and for 3 whole days I wandered about the town in profound dejection." And then he's talking about the townspeople of St. Petersburg. "They, of course, do not know me, but I know them. I know them intimately." The dreamer has gained this understanding of these people. Even though he does not interact with them, he's gained this understanding of them by watching them and by envisioning in his mind what their lives must be like, how he can picture their lives, and creating these dreams and these visions of his to project those thoughts onto. The next line I have is, "I don't know how to be silent when my heart is speaking, and I do nothing but dream every day that at last I shall meet someone. Oh, if only you knew how often I have been in love that way." This is when he's first talking to the girl that he kind of runs into unexpectedly and decides to approach after he's seen tears streaming down her face. And while we don't obtain her name until a little later in the story, which again gives this idea of, in his mind, this is all kind of a dream. He's not fully experiencing the events that are happening to him, and he doesn't really know how to interact with other people. The girl's name is Nastenka, and Nastenka and the dreamer share these conversations. And the dreamer is such a passionate character, but in a very unique way. He's very imaginative, and his imagination leads him to feel very empathetically and strongly about people that he doesn't even know. So he's saying here, I've often fallen in love just by dreaming about these people that I see. That line to me is just so beautiful. The next line I have is, only be good, do what I ask, you see, I speak frankly. You won't fall in love with me, that's impossible, I assure you. I am ready for friendship, here's my hand, but you mustn't fall in love with me, I beg you. This is Nastenka telling the dreamer, warning him, rather, that even at the beginning of the story, she's issuing this warning. I'll be your friend, and I want to have these conversations with you, but you must not fall in love with me. Which, of course, informs the reader that this is a forlorn conclusion, and that the dreamer will fall in love with Nastenka and will be burned as a result of that love. Next quote is, for I have known you for ages, Nastenka, because I have been looking for someone for ages, and that is a sign that it was you I was looking for, and it was ordained that we should meet now. At this moment, 1,000 valves have opened in my head, and I must let myself flow in a river of words, or I shall choke. The poetic words spoken from the dreamer to Nastenka in this story is made my heart just break and mend itself and then break again over and over throughout the story of White Nights. It's so poignant, and he falls fast and he falls hard for this girl that he doesn't even know. And it's the perfect tragedy in a way, because he doesn't know Nastenka, he doesn't know her backstory. He knows one thing, that she's warned him not to fall in love with her, which only causes him to fall faster and harder. And because of this, we get this tragic atmosphere from the very beginning that something is gonna go wrong. It's almost like you get this love between them, this kind of a cat and mouse game, so early on in the story that you know it's doomed not to last. Next quote I have is, he desires nothing because he is superior to all desire, because he has everything, because he's satiated, because he is the artist of his own life and creates it for himself every hour to suit his latest whim. This is the dreamer talking about the gift of being a dreamer. He's saying that no matter what circumstance he's in, he's content, he's satisfied, because his mind conjures up everything that he could need and desire. He has no need for riches because his mind is already rich with his imagination. This is something that I think is such an important concept to try to grasp, is that the mindset is everything. The problem with the dreamer is that his mindset also got in the way of him actually taking action and achieving things in his life, because he decided to focus only on his dreams, and he was so stuck in his own head that he didn't take action a lot of the time until it was much too late. The next quote I have is, and one asks oneself, where are one's dreams? And one shakes one's head and says how rapidly the years fly by. And again one asks oneself, what has one done with one's years? Where have you buried your best days? Have you lived or not? Something that I consider often in my own life is, where have the years gone, and what have I done with the years that I have had? And have I lived or not? This is one of the dilemmas that comes from being a dreamer, which I would consider anyone who likes to escape in the realm of books and literature and their own imaginary worlds and things like that, which I would consider myself to do. I would consider that person to be a dreamer. And the problem with being a dreamer is sometimes you do so much dreaming that you don't do enough living. And that's something that I've discovered in my own life that this book really points out in my life and makes me realize that time is quickly slipping by. And dreaming is not enough. You have to go out and live your life and really experience things before it's too late. The next quote I have is, my Nasenka was so downcast, so dismayed, that I think she realized at last that I loved her and was sorry for my poor love. So when we are unhappy, we feel the unhappiness of others more. Feeling is not destroyed, but concentrated. Nasenka, as the dreamer story is going on, her own story is progressing, and we get this backstory of who she is. She's this kind of oppressed young girl who's living with her grandmother and wants to escape. And while she's living with her grandmother, they obtain this boarder who comes and stays with them in one of their spare rooms. And Nasenka realizes that this man might be in love with her. And she asks him when he plans to leave to take her with him. And he says he can't do that, but he'll come back and he will take her with him then. And Nasenka waits and waits and waits, and this man does not come back. And she's so focused on the love that she's lost that she does not realize the love that is around her, this dreamer who is madly in love with her and who would do anything for her. But her mind is elsewhere on this lost love that she is still waiting for, even though she knows how unlikely it is that he will return. And when Nasenka realizes that the dreamer is in love with her, she weeps for him and for herself, because she realizes what a good man he is and how happy they would be together, but she feels that she must still wait for this lost love. She tries to convince herself that she will be happy with the dreamer, but she is unable to make that promise. She has a sense of unresolution that must be dealt with first. And the dreamer addresses Nasenka. Your hand is cold, mine burns like fire. How blind you are, Nasenka. Oh, how unbearable a happy person is sometimes, but I could not be angry with you. In his mind, he's addressing her and thinking that he's so angry that she cannot return his love, but he knows that he can't be angry with her. And she's happy when she finally learns that her long-lost love, who she thought had abandoned her, has come back for her. He finally comes back, and Nasenka is overjoyed, and she is telling the dreamer, oh, what a great friend you are, because he's helped her in a way find this lost love. And so it's just adding insult to injury with her complimenting him on what a great friend he is. And she's so happy, and she wants to share this happiness with her friend, but the dreamer is just heartbroken over the fact that he has now lost her to this man who had once abandoned her. The dreamer is speaking to Nasenka. Listen to me, Nasenka. What I am going to say to you now is all nonsense, all impossible, all stupid. I know that this can never be, but I cannot be silent. It's impossible, but I love you, Nasenka. There it is. Now everything is told. This confession that comes in White Nights, the build-up leading up to it, even in only 42 pages before this confession takes place, the build-up leading up to it is such a payoff and such a heartbreak at the same time, because you're expecting him to confess, but you're also not expecting him to confess because he's never taken action before. And now he's finally taking action, and you think, surely, since he's now taking action and not just dreaming, he will be rewarded for that action. But it is not to be. Next quote I have is, I felt that in my heart there was so much love for you, Nasenka, so much love, and it seemed so bitter that I could not help you with my love, that my heart was breaking, and I could not be silent. I had to speak, Nasenka. I had to speak. The next quote comes at the end of the White Nights, when we get to morning at last, and the conclusion, the epilogue of sorts of the story. The heartbreaking, heart-wrenching epilogue. Morning comes, and the dreamer says, my night ended with the morning. It was a wet day. The rain was falling and beating disconsolately upon my window pane. It was dark in the room and gray outside. My head ached and I was giddy. Fever was stealing over my limbs. This start to the morning, this heartbreak after this betrayal of sorts from Nastenka, that in reality she had promised would always come to pass. If he fell in love with her, there would always be heartbreak, but he could not help himself. He still loved her, even when he knew it was dangerous and unwise and foolish. And now he's facing the consequences for that love, and now that love lost. But there was a bit of a hope at the end when the dreamer too realizes that there's someone that has been in his life that he's long overlooked, that he hadn't realized he might love. And at the end of the story, he's kind of speaking in a way to Nastenka in his mind, and he says, "May your sky be clear, may your sweet smile be bright and untroubled, and may you be blessed of that moment of blissful happiness which you gave to another lonely and grateful heart. My God, a whole moment of happiness, is that too little for the whole of a man's life?" So he gives her this thanks in his mind, that he's thankful for the moments of companionship that they shared in that lonely time of the year when he felt so lonely and so hopeless, and the conversations that they shared, this temporary thing that really makes you think about summer, is sharing this companionship for a very short time with a person that you come to care deeply about, but who's all too quickly fleeting. He thanks her for that time, but he also says, a whole moment of happiness, is that too little for the whole of a man's life? He feels that he will never obtain such happiness again. That's White Nights by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. I cannot speak enough praises about this book. I cannot speak enough praises about Fyodor Dostoyevsky in general. Anything that he's written I have absolutely loved and has made me laugh and cry and feel all the feelings. And White Nights was definitely a very tear-jerking book that I may have shed a few tears throughout. It's a very powerful book, and Dostoyevsky's ability to convey such powerful emotions in such a short amount of time is very much astounding. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about some of his longer novels before too long, but if you've read White Nights by Fyodor Dostoyevsky and enjoyed it, or did not, whichever, write a comment down below and let me know what you thought. And if you also have read Dostoyevsky, make sure to tell me what your favorite Dostoyevsky book is, because I only really got into reading his stuff 2 years ago, and I started with The Brothers Karamazov, which is like probably the hardest one to start with. That's what I started with, but I've only read Brothers Karamazov, Crime and Punishment, and Notes from the Underground, along with now White Nights. So slowly trying to get through the Dostoyevsky novels, but I really like to take my time with them. Let me know what you think of Dostoyevsky, what your favorite Dostoyevsky stories are. And if you like videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe. I also talk a lot about the Harvard Classics collection, so if you're finding my channel through this video, make sure to check those out if that's something you're interested in. And thank you for watching this video.